Let's continue where we left off in the last video with UV mapping, and let's start to actually UV map this guy here. The concept is very similar to what we just did. It's just a little bit more complicated. So what we are going to be doing is we are going to first select the guy, and you can see that the UVs are absolutely terrible. This is just what happens when you returbo something. The UVs just go completely nuts. So let's select this entire guy, and then we can go to create, and we can do planar. This just means there are no cuts in the model whatsoever. And then we are going to enable symmetry. This is something we haven't really used in the viewport before. So if we hold down the W key, now you can see we get symmetry here, and then symmetry. And this just means that our selection is going to be symmetrical. This is going to save you so much time, because then you don't have to do each side by itself. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be cutting off the neck like this. Basically, the neck will be a whole different island. So let's just do this first. So select it like so, hit Shift X to cut it off. Then we can just move it out of the way. Right mouse button, UV shell, and then let's just W key and just move it out. And then we can start to focus on the head. Let's just see what happens when we just do a basic unfold of the head first. I often like to do this just as a preliminary unfold, because sometimes it works kind of fine. So let's just select the head and do unfold, and then we do unfold. Now you can see what happens. And again, it's almost impossible to tell if this here is a good unfold or not, because we have to actually look at this with a checker applied to it. What we have to do though is we have to delete history, because this goes a bit crazy. This is one that quirks with Maya, that if you have a live unfold like this, now essentially we have an unfold applied to the object. If you save the object, if you save the file and you haven't deleted history, sometimes it just kind of crashes and it just deletes all your UVs. So just make sure to delete the history right away whenever you're doing unfolding. So let's just assign another shader to it. In object mode, right mouse button, new favorite material, Lambert 3. We can also just name this. It's a good idea to name it. It's called UV checker. So the reason it's a good idea to name it, even though it's a single object, is what if we want to use this on more things? Now we can just assign the same object and we know what it's called. So click on the file, assign a file node to it, go here and assign a checker, like we did in the last video. And the way this works is that first we have a file node which loads in the file, and then we have this one which loads where is the file, what's happening specifically to it. Set this to 5 and 5. And then we can enable in the viewport, we can now enable the textures, like so. So you can see there are a lot of problems. Obviously this is massively problematic because this is just a planar project, but also this in general isn't great. So we have to do something about that. So first thing, let's cut up this guy here. I prefer to cut this in the back because most likely we're not going to be seeing the back too much. So Shift X when this has been selected, like so. Then we can unfold this piece here now. So Shift right mouse button, unfold, and there we go. Nicely unfolded and no seams in the center here. So this means that if you were to look at it from this angle, right now you wouldn't really see any seams whatsoever because we actually just covered it here. UV seams generally isn't a problem, particularly when you're just texture painting. But it becomes an issue when you're using displacement maps. Even on Pacific Rim 2, little spoiler, there are UV seams caused by displacement maps. The only reason you can't see them is because of motion blur. Honestly, there are displacement map issues in every movie you're watching. You just can't really see them. So what I'll do now is I will cut away the ears. The ears can be really annoying to deal with when it comes to UV mapping. So I will just select the ear like this and just make sure we select all of them like so. And then we're just going to cut it away. Select the ears. And we just move them over like so. We can also add a seam going through the ear as well, like so. This is just to make it easier. This is like, imagine if this guy here was like it was like a taxidermy model or something like that, and you have to flatten it out. It's very hard to flatten out an ear like this. So select it the loop going through the ear as well. Shift X, just so we have it here. Now we can select the UV and UV shell, and we can just select them out like this. Then we have the face now. So I want to have a seam here on the back, just so we can just split it up. Actually, let's show what this looks like currently. We would just do an unfold. So you can see it looks very similar. And we just do this single cut here. It's gonna just burst open. So now we have a single cut here, and then we do an unfold. Actually, let's delete history first. I can feel it was getting slow. UV shell, and then we do an unfold. And you can just see it just goes like poof. You can tell there's a lot of tension in the area. It takes some time for this to become intuitive, but that's just a matter of time. We can also cut away this entire top section as well of the head. We don't really need this in a separate or in the same patch. So we can just select this entire region like so. And then we can hit Shift X again. We can take this part, we can just move it out. Then we can hit unfold, and then we can unfold. You can see whenever the shape changes like that, that meant it was artificially kept in shape. So it's really important that you actually split it up like this. And then we can do unfold again on this. And now you can see it works even better. And this is also going to be represented in the checker here. I think we actually need to repeat this a few more times. 8 and 8. There we go. It's almost getting there. Still a bit of stretching here. So what I'll do is I will split this up here as well. And let's see what happens. And I want to split this up. Let's just try this now. And let's split this up and unfold. Yeah, so whenever it does that, we just need more unfolding. You can also see here that we also cut away the inside of the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. This is very deliberate. This just makes our UVing a lot easier for this case here. If this was a full UV mapping series, which we do actually have, then we are definitely doing those areas as well. But for now, let's just keep it a bit simple. So this here is legit the way I'm unfolding for production as well. Just the way I'm doing it now, I'm just getting something down in a planar map, and then I'm just trying and see what works. Do as few cuts as possible, and then just trying it out. Might need a cut like this as well. Let's try this. Unfold and unfold. Yeah, I think we need that. Though we can merge these two together again. So here we can just merge and just do move and sew edges. Then we can do another unfold. Unfold and unfold. So we're getting somewhere now. Okay, so what I want to do now I want to take the ears and make sure they're unfolded, because they were not before. So just select the UV shells and just move them up like this. And then we'll unfold these as well. Unfold and unfold. Very nice. And then we'll take all of them and do an unfold and unfold. This way we make sure that everything is fine the way it is. And then we'll start to organize it. Now, like we said, everything has to fit into one tile here. Everything has to fit inside this one here. You know, unless we're working for film, then we can fit it into as many as possible. But let's just, for sake of argument, put them into the single tile in the center. So what we have to do, we have to make sure that this all has the same texel density. Because I don't know right now if they do. They're probably pretty close, but we just want to make sure it is actually the same. So let's select all the UV shells. Just select right mouse button, shell, and select them all. And then we go to layout. And then we go to layout UVs with the settings. And let's just, reset this back. And then we just set this to preserve 3D ratios. There you can see, now they all have the same texel density. Now we can try to set this to horizontal and see what happens. We can try to set it into vertical. So we definitely want to set this to horizontal. That just makes it look a lot nicer, like this. Everything is upside down right now. That's pretty trivial to fix. Select everything, hit the E key to rotate, and now we can just hold on the J key, and we can just snap it so it's really nice and clean like this. And then I want to put this guy here in the center, and just make sure everything is selected now. This is where we can use snapping. So right now we can snap this to a point. So hit the D key and V, and now it's snapped to the center point. And let's just make sure we're actually in the center. You can see here, this is 0.5, which means we're actually in the center. Now we can use grid snap. Hold on the X key and just snap it here so it's in the center. And let's do the same for the other ones as well. I just want the center ones to actually be in the center, because we'll do a magic trick in a little bit. We'll use some nice symmetry on this. We can also select this guy here, because I just want to make sure it's perfectly straight. Right now it's not perfectly straight. So let's just do that. And we can do that if we go to the UV toolkit, and then we go down here and we go to, let's go to arrange and layout and orient to edge. And now you can see it actually oriented perfectly here. Let's do that again. Select all this, snap to an edge, and just snap to grid. Cool. And I will also, you can see performance because it's getting a bit crappy. So let's just delete history, Shift Alt D in object mode. Just move it up. Just move this up as well. Actually, let's just move the ears like so, like so. So what I want to make sure is that this side of the ear and the other side of the ear they're geographically close. So let's just put it like so. Just so it makes sense. One thing you also want to keep in mind is if we go to the right view now, hit the spacebar, right view. What I really want is I want this to be oriented the same way. You can now see that you're looking at the text here. Problem with this one now is that it is not following the same pattern. So now it is, but the other way is not. And this becomes quite important. If let's say you're using a tile adjustment, you're using a tile to tile something across, which you often do. Now we'll keep going this direction and suddenly we'll go this direction. Go horizontal and suddenly vertical. So it's really important that you go in here and you just make sure that everything is aligned properly like this. Let's do the same for this one as well. Okay, cool. You know, it's fine-ish. Let's not be too perfect here. Let's do the same thing with this guy as well. This guy is actually flipped the other way. So let's just select it all, hit the E key for rotate, and then we hold on the J key and we just rotate it like so. Oh, and also let's make sure these guys here are not in the way of this guy. So let's move this down like so. And the way I prefer to do it is I prefer to lay out this based on the geography. So I will put this below and I'll put this above. This just means that it's more logical to see what's going on. This is where it's easy for humans to texture. You can either optimize for computer to texture, or you can optimize for humans to texture something, or for human performance. And we really want to optimize in this case for human readability. If you're doing a game or you're a game artist, you're going to be shouting at the screen right now. But for my business, which was film, we really want to optimize for human readability instead of computer readability. But for games, that's obviously different. So let's just move this up so we can do a nice little layout of it, like so. And let's do the same here in the center. Let's do orient to edges, just make sure it's in the center. Let's do the same with this guy as well, orient to edges. And you can see this guy wasn't. Select all of it, hit the D key, then V to snap it. Then we do X, and now it's going to snap right in the center. And then let's move the ears over here as well. And now I'll show you a really cool trick. This is now that everything is laid out like this, we can now use symmetry, which you can find under Tool, and it's going to be called the Symmetrize tool. So what we do now is we select an edge based on topological seam like this, and then we can just start to paint it in. So now you can just see here what we're doing. We're just painting in the symmetry line here. So if there is something which is asymmetrical, which we really had when it came to the head here, that would be painted over. And look at these guys. They will just go boom and just be painted over to the other side as well. This is because it just looks at the center line and it's just going to actually perfectly mirror it over. One thing you can do as well, if you go to Tool and symmetrize, and you get up the options for it, you can set flood shell. This means that you don't actually have to paint. It's just going to just flood it completely. Just select the center line, now click it, and it's just going to flood it entirely. So if there was any areas you missed, it's just going to really just flood it. So now you can see we have a perfectly symmetrical model here, which means you can paint one side and just flip it over in whatever software. And we have a really nice model here with minimal stretching, which you can start to work with in essentially any production. Though, disclaimer, for game art, you really want to optimize this. Like you don't want to leave it like this. Slight issue here, just noticing, you want to make sure that this doesn't actually go over the edge. So in this case here, we just have to scale it down a teeny tiny bit. In this case, we'd scale everything down like so, and just scale it down a little bit, like so. So yeah, this is how I've been professionally UV mapping heads for years now. And this is a fast and pretty methodical way of doing it. So just to sum it up, what we did now. First, we started by making a planar project of the entire thing. Then we started cutting away the most essential parts here. We started cutting away the neck, so that was a whole separate part. And then we started going into the head and just trying to unfold it with the most basic version of it. And then we cut away more and more and more parts. You can either have a lot of cuts and no stretching, or you can have very few cuts and a lot of stretching. You know, ideally, every single polygon would be its own island. Then, you know, we have no stretching whatsoever, but that is entirely unpractical to work with. And on the other end, we would have no cuts whatsoever, but then we have a lot of stretching. So you have to just find a balance, and whatever balance that is for you, you just have to work with the project. This here is a generally good balance for me, because this here is stuff is cut off in a pretty nice way. We don't have too many cuts, and it's generally pretty good to work with.